Hello and welcome to Weird Heat. I'm Brian Altano. This is Max Scoville, and today we are talking about pride. Before we do that, what the fuck is Weird Heat?
Oh man, Weird Heat is the show. We're bad at explaining, but every episode's about a different concept. It's about a different kind of big picture thing, and we spend, an hour or so digging into it and picking it apart and trying to make sense out of it and really using it as a jumping off point for some sort of artistic pursuit. Mm-hmm. So
perfect.
Maybe this is digging into our own practices and our own, habits as artists and musicians, or maybe it's just a chance to talk about something.
Yeah, and so if it's your first time hearing the show or watching it, thank you. And every episode begins and ends with an original song. We have new original artwork that goes with it. You can find all that stuff on weirdheat.com. You can also find it on our Patreon, which is patreon.com/weirdheat. All that other fun stuff. Let's get out of the way because I'm starting to get a little braggy about all what wonderful things that we do and make here. And that, at its core, is one of the problems or joys of today's concept, which is, like I said, pride. Man, this is a tough one to unpack.
No, so here's the thing. Pride is good. Pride's great. They have it on motivational posters, right? They have parades about it. It's like pride. You should be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
That's good, right? But it's also
mostly.
So the thing about pride is it is the only one of the 7 deadly sins they put on motivational posters, which is really weird because they're never like gluttony and there's like a guy climbing a mountain,
No, I mean it would be like marshmallows.
Yeah,
like,
it's a huge,
which is a great poster.
Just a big ice cream.
Yeah, I feel like we should make that.
Yeah.
No, pride is it's one that I think that like your first interaction with learning that word is either positive or negative, and then you sort of let that define you for the rest of your life. My gut reaction to the word pride is always like this big macho dude beating his chest, kicking sand into the nerd's face on the beach or whatever. That old archetype, who is a guy who just like he won't back down. He won't like learn new things. He's just like, I'm proud. I'm tough and I'm proud. I got pride. But that's not really what it's all about. I mean, I think that's it at its worst. That's the 7 deadly sin version of it, right?
I mean, sort of. The problem is that words get beaten to shit left and right in the course of history. Mm-hmm. I was digging into it and trying to find like where does this come from? First of all, I found out that the 7 deadly sins, initially there were 8 of them, and they weren't actually just straight up sins. They were a little bit more kind of nuanced than that. It was 8 evil thoughts, which were put in place by a 4th century monk named Evagrius Ponticus. Mm-hmm. And he was Greek, so there's obviously going to be something that gets lost in translation, but hyperephania was the kind of equivalent of pride, which is more akin to like arrogance or haughtiness, which I think it's weird that sort of the fact that the term pride is like, oh yeah, pride is it's in the movie Seven, it's right in there, but it also, and you'd be like, oh, he's a proud man, like Pride and Prejudice, like it still exists in sort of a modern context as like a bad thing, but then they're also like, you should be more proud of yourself. You did good at the hockey tournament, like there's always that like, is it good? Is it bad? Like, what do you do with it?
Well, I think it's a weird blend in terms of how you interpret it. To first of all, it's confidence. Like, and fuck yeah, it's confidence, because like you should be confident. Like, you are your own champion, and you should be the person that is like cheering for yourself more than anybody else on earth is. And like they always say, like you're your biggest fan, you're your biggest champion, like you're your biggest supporter. If you won't fight for you, who will? And so there's pride. Pride is also defiance. And I think that like you get a lot of people who are sort of just like, I'm this and I'm proud of it. And the thing they say that like they're, at the front part of that is either like a cultural thing, or sometimes it's like a hot button issue. Like people will be like proud gun owner, proud, Christian, proud. And it's like, they're saying that that they are proud of what they believe in, but sometimes that is also put into that place to sort of convey a message of kind of like, fuck you if you're going to come after my shit. And so that's that weird balance, right? And I don't think anyone will ever find it. And we'll try to find it today. But that's a weird balance between self-confidence or confidence in culture or confidence in a thought or belief or theories or ideas, and the cockiness, defiance, and fuck you-ery of being like, I'm this and proud. Mm-hmm. So where do we even begin to start with that? So
this is a pretty big concept.
Yeah, this is tough.
So we're doing this at 10 o'clock on a Friday night, so this might be a little bit tricky, but we can always come back to it. I really hate the idea of national pride. I just on a fundamental level, I think it's just one of those things that people do, and at one point maybe it made a lot more sense, but we're putting this show out into the ether on the internet, like the internet kind of fucked up the idea of national pride, because I feel like it's kind of like when you're in grade school, and for a certain point of time you're like, your parents, they know everything. They know everything. They understand how the world works, and you're like, oh, they say I go to bed at 9 o'clock. Like that's a pretty reasonable time to go to bed. And then you go to school and you meet other kids who have different parents, and they're suddenly like, what are you talking about? I go to bed at 10:30. I get to stay up and watch South Park. And you're like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? And you go home and you're like, Mom, Dad, they can go to bed late. And that's kind of the internet. The second you're like, wait, I was very proud of my country that I live in. But then I found out that the other countries, they have other stuff too, and they're not the worst. Yeah, it's not there's good stuff everywhere. And you're like, well, what am I proud of? For being in these that's invisible boundaries?
That's a really good way of putting it, too, because I think, and we're speaking on behalf as two Americans that grew up in America, right? So this is mostly what we know. I have
two straight, white, cisgendered Americans, not to get too SJW there, but
no, to just really lay it out. This is where this perspective is coming from specifically. But in America, I consider myself patriotic in that I'm proud to live where I live, and I do love my country and what it's provided me and others. But also, you're taught in America very early on, we're number one, we're the world's greatest country, and love it or leave it. And so all of those things kind of stem from pride, because it's actually hard to sort of compartmentalize what's number one, what isn't. It doesn't matter. But I will say this. I grew up the son of an immigrant who came from an immigrant family who came here when she was 16 years old. And when she became an American citizen, she had to get up in front of a room full of people. And I heard the story many, many times growing up because it was deeply depressing. And she had to get up in front of an entire room full of people and effectively, to become an American citizen, denounce the culture that she came from, denounce her country of origin. And she had pride as an Italian and had to become an American, and then effectively had to gel into a culture that she had to be proud of, because, when the chips were down or things didn't look well, and my mom was like, I'm mad I had to come to this country, we always said, but you met your husband here, you met your family here, everything's going great. But she did have to denounce her pride of her own heritage to sort of acclimate here. And the defiant part of that would have been like, fuck you, no, and leaving, right? Because I think that does make a certain amount of sense. But national pride is interesting because we do live in that sort of mosaic melting pot. Everything is sort of, some people call it globalization. I call it, I don't know, I can walk to a Japanese restaurant and a Vietnamese sandwich shop and a French florist shop all in my neighborhood. So I'm glad all those things come together. But national pride is really interesting because I think that you should be proud of your place of origin or your place of residence.
I don't think you should be proud of it. I don't
really.
Unless you did something to make it get there,
That's true. I think
my problem with the idea of pride is that, especially when it's just sort of this like fucking ephemeral, like it's this abstract pride of like you're proud of it. You're like, do you mean you like it? Mm-hmm. Because there's something very simple about like, oh, I like where I live, and that's fine. It's okay to be like to like where you're from and where you live and everything. But did you do anything to get there? Like, there's something really, really messed up when people are like, proud of being American and they're A number one, and then then somebody's like, I don't know, anti-immigrant because they're like, these are people who are working to get here. They want to be a fan, and they're like, oh, you want to be an American? All right, name 43 presidents. Yeah. I'll wait. And you're like, you're like a fake America fan.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense then. But to clarify, I think that my pride for America stems from the pride of what I was taught to believe is the American dream,
right.
Which is that anyone can come here and become something, which I saw firsthand with my family. And so my pride there comes from being like, I'm proud of a country that welcomed that into existence. Whether or not that becomes a thing that remains our mantra forever, obviously we'll see. But for now, that's where that pride stems from specifically. And it's tough, right? Because it's like you could be proud of a place that you grew up in that isn't good. Or isn't great, like a town.
Yeah, I have a tattoo of Connecticut, dude. I definitely get that of being
exactly.
like, yeah, I'm Connecticut, and I'm like,
yeah,
it's fine.
mean, you respect the origin of yourself and your beliefs and your family and stuff like that, and you're proud of that without maybe necessarily being like Connecticut's the number one state. So I think Connecticut is a perfect example of the sort of like confidence versus cockiness debate, right? Of sort of like you're confident in what you learn from Connecticut, but you're not cocky enough to get up in front of anyone and say it's the best state in the world.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, no, that's about right. I think it's fine. It's
mm-hmm. Well, I think that and here's the thing that I wanted to get into a little bit. The cultural pride that I sort of inherited as an Italian American son of an immigrant, actually, as much as I found it to be like incredible, because in Italian cultures and families, they teach you all about sort of like of togetherness, right? You get into big gatherings. We are not nomadic, really. We are not individuals. We are big, loud groups. You've seen the commercials for the Olive Garden.
When you're here, you're family.
Your family. Yeah, we're not there. We're with the family back home. So we would get together in giant groups, and we would have huge fucking meals. And that is a cultural pride that defined me to the point where I was just doughy always. And that comes with like pride with food is so fucking weird because it will kill you. Like, it will literally kill you. It's the kind of thing where I've seen at dinners, I've seen people in my family, and I've been guilty of this myself, being like, where'd you get this cheese? Or how come you put more cheese on it? I got to be, there's a pride in me that like, I don't have this pasta without like a mountain of cheese on it. What are these meatballs made from? Oh, turkey? You fucking put turkey meatballs on Italian food? God, that's disgusting. I'm not going to eat that shit. That is pride. That is 100% pride. And so you cut no corners. You take no substitutions. You take no prisoners and all that shit.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you look down and you're like, shit, I'm fat. And maybe you're proud of that, and that's great. I was for a fucking long time. It defined who I was. But eventually I had to buck my cultural pride and make culinary decisions that looked nothing like what I was used to having. Because it was like, it's Sunday. I'm going to be a proud Italian. I'm going to make a sauce. I'm going to do the whole thing. And now I'm like, it's Sunday. I'm going to batch cook proteins and vegetables for the week so I can eat healthy all week. And like, I lost a bit of cultural pride there, but I hopefully gained a few years on planet Earth.
But you also I don't know, man. You've lost a ton of weight. You got your shit together,
right.
And are you proud of yourself?
Yeah.
Are you proud of yourself?
Yeah.
So wait, are you telling me that it's possible to hold two opposing thoughts in your head at the same time, where you're like, oh shit, I've become like a California soy boy, but I'm also happy with how I look,
Well, so I am proud of myself, but I remember I tweeted something about it once, and somebody said like, they're like, oh, what are you bragging about? And I was like, at first I was like, ah, shit, he's right, I am. And then I was like, wait, no, yeah, fuck, yeah, I am. This was fucking hard. This was really fucking hard to do.
But how dare you? Because now you feel good about yourself, you cocky piece of shit.
So that fucking sucks, right? So how do you, especially on the internet now, when you're conveying things in text mostly, right? On Facebook is all about, and we talked about this in the optimism episode. Social media is about basically highlighting the best mixtape points of your life and putting it out there and going like, this is me at my best. I did this. Like, I'll put it this way.
Yeah, it's like a resume.
Yeah.
You don't write at the bottom. Sometimes I fart though, like.
So I'll put it this way, Max. Monday you come to work, you find out you got a $5,000 raise. Awesome. That's fucking cool. That's $5,000 extra you get every single year. That's a big deal.
I love money. It's great. It's awesome.
You're very proud of it.
Yes.
Who do you tell?
fiance. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you tell him? I work with you, so I don't know if you would tell me. Maybe.
Probably. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
You probably call your mom.
No, but I also don't want to boast about that, you know.
So
yeah, there you go.
There's the barrier. But you wouldn't go on. Would you go on Facebook and go, "I got a $5,000 raise"?
No, that's tacky. Yeah, no, that's like a gnarly weird thing to do. You know?
It's tacky because because it's money and you don't talk about money.
Ooh, yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
So pride in money, and that's why when you see that asshole like business guy and every like, you know, he's like in 80s cartoons, he's like 90s like
Now I got a question.
Villains.
Will
and
I
shit.
get all of my raise at once?
No.
And will they give it to me in cash?
No. After California taxes, you get about $8 a year. Yeah, it's nothing.
I was going to say, because if they gave me the $5,000 all at once, hell no, I wouldn't tell people they'd come to my home and try to take all my money.
That's true. That sets a dangerous precedent. So this is where it becomes very difficult, right? Because it's like if you lose weight, which is something you worked hard for, you can be like, here's my before and after picture and put it up on the internet, right? Hopefully. But if you got like a beautiful new girlfriend and you took a picture and you're like, check out my hot new girlfriend, you'd be like, what a fucking cocky asshole.
Yeah.
But if I don't know, sometimes I have a really good day at work and I'm like, man, I'm really proud of today. Like, I'm really good at this sometimes. But I can't put that out there because
you do this thing that when I'm like in a rotten place totally fucks me up, but I can't fault you for it, where you're like, you put positive vibes out there. Like you'll post a photo or a thing, or you're like, today I did this thing and I'm very proud of it and it was awesome and I'm really happy about it, you know? Or you're like, and you share it. And like, I mean, I do that here and there too. And like, I'm sure it fucks with somebody else, you know? And there's always that thing of like, where you're not actively being like, here's the thing I accomplished informationally. Like here's a break, you know, you're not like, here's a breakdown of my achievements. You know, it's not boastful. You know, but you put out this thing and it's like, you're obviously proud of it.
I took one. I was taking hundreds of pictures on my on all the trips I take, but I went on my honeymoon and I was taking all these beautiful pictures and writing like funny captions with them or something interesting about them, because I don't like it to just be like, here's this thing. It was like, for me, like the tweet is either like the photo is cool and it stands on its own, or the information is interesting, or there's a funny joke. And I had like 10 glasses of wine in me and I was walking around in Paris and I took a picture of like the fucking river there and it was a gorgeous shot at sunset. And I put it up on Twitter and I wrote like, "Hi haters." And I was like, you fucking idiot. Yeah. Like, you took a beautiful thing and you put a prideful, cocky-ass twist on it and you crushed this great moment. And I deleted it, and I hate that. Mm-hmm. Like, I think even, like, Troy Baker responded, and he was just like, oh, yeah, like, I love that river. Like, I love going there.
Did you make the river?
Yeah,
Are you
like,
proud of the river?
You? Yeah, good job. And so I think that's a really interesting balance, because it's like we are supposed to champion ourselves. Mm-hmm. If you're a creator, in a sea of creators where you are buried overwhelmingly more than you ever have been before, you have to fight for yourself to get your work out there and to get your voice out there. But it's really, really hard to do that without coming off as like, I'm the shit. And I've seen a thing recently on Twitter, which is really interesting. It's very factual. Someone just basically saying, I'm a 19-year-old Latina from the Bronx, and I make illustrations about talking cars. And there's 4 of them. And these things blow the fuck up. And you look down in the corner, it's like 56,000 favorites. And it's like, wow. She very straightforward explained who she was and then showed her work. And everything backed each other up. And now she's hopefully getting gigs from that. And it's not just like, I'm the best fucking artist in the world. I'm awesome.
I love that.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about it. Like, you haven't spent like a ton of time in LA when you weren't there for. You haven't been to LA by accident, right?
Not really.
Okay.
No.
So the thing about LA is that everyone's there everyone's got at least one hustle, at least 2 hustles. Like everyone there is trying to chase something, and you always get somebody who's like, and I lived there for a little while, and it was like everyone's. You have to be fucking proud of what you're doing. You have to ride that wave, and you have to be like able to like upsell yourself, and that's why people get agents and managers and stuff. And it's incredibly demoralizing if you're not one of those people, and if you're not on top of that, you know. And you get people who also just cast a wide net, and they're like, yeah, so I'm a voice actress, but I'm also a model, but I'm also I do readings, and I'm a realtor, and I'm a yoga instructor, and I'm a spiritual healer. And you're like, what the fuck what do you do? Like, what's your thing? You know, it's kind of just like, it's just casting a wide net, you know. Mm-hmm. It's so I mean, you know, some people are figuring out what they're doing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's also like, it's throwing a bunch of shit and seeing what sticks.
And I think from there, like the one you're most proud of rises to the top, which I find really interesting because there's a lot of people. There's actually like it's sort of like a European thing to do, and specifically, I remember hearing this from like extended family members of sort of like they're like, oh, I'm an artist. And like, oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. Most people can't make a living out of doing that. And you dig around a little bit, and it's like, oh no, like they work in like they're like. Like basically desk jobs or something like that, or secretaries or something like that. But they go home and they paint like crazy, and like they are not defined by their day job; they're defined by the stuff they do in the margins.
Yeah, totally.
And so you become your profession is what you're most proud of, and I find that really interesting because it's like that's you're defined almost by what you are most proud of. But yeah,
no, I mean, at the same time, I've never been confident enough in what I'm doing to come right out and be like, I'm an artist. I'm a writer. I guess now I'm like, yeah, I'm like a video host kind of. I feel like I'm zeroing in on, I'm a podcaster if I had to put like one name on it. But I think the term artist has such a weird, pejorative connotation to go with it. And, same with writer. If you're like, oh, I'm a writer, you're a writer. Well, what do you write? Write something right now. And if I'm like, oh, I'm a comedian, you're like, I'm not a comedian exactly.
Right.
I don't meet that expectation that people have. And it's hard to be proud of that when you don't have that to stand on.
No, I totally get that. And I think it's, that's, imposter syndrome, effectively. Is what
and then
it is.
meanwhile, there's actual imposters out there who are like, aha, I have captured the zeitgeist.
And I'm proud.
Using hashtags. And now I'm...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that like the thing about labels like that is that they help other people mostly. Because then they can, if I got to the root of your conversation about talking to people in LA is that it's annoying to not know what someone is or does after 40 seconds of them explaining it.
Well, no, I mean, it's exhausting because I don't feel confident saying one title, let alone throwing out a bunch of them,
But like, so how do we get ourselves to a point where we can, if we make art, we can be proud enough to say, I'm an artist. I struggle with calling myself a comedian, even though comedy is at the core of almost everything I do.
I mean, the one thing that's really fucked up is if you're like, oh, I do comedy. People are like, oh, make me laugh. And you're like, the fuck?
Yeah.
And I used to be like, oh, you wouldn't do this to a dentist. And then I started dating a dentist, and people absolutely fucking do that.
Yeah,
they're like, they open their mouth. They're like, I got this thing back here.
Yeah,
what is that?
This.
And you're like, that's a fucking jujube, you idiot. But tell me a joke, make me laugh, go. And you're like,
well, it's also because it's like, there's the traditional mold of what that is. And so like when I say like, I do comedy or I'm a comedian, people are like, oh, where do you perform? And I'm like, oh, I make videos or I make shows or something like that. And so like there's a hesitance that comes with the pride. And it's like, and then it's also like for me to say like, I know I'm funny, I always have to, I feel like I got to back that up with like, but don't worry, there's 1,000 things I'm bad at. Like I can't just be like, I'm good at this. Because I have to worry that I'm going to be too prideful and cocky. I have to also back it up with like, but I can't dance, and like I'm bad at this and I'm bad at that and I'm bad at this and I'm bad at that, And it kind of sucks, and not just for me, but for anybody out there who's doing something or making something or trying to find a definition for themselves, but doesn't have the sort of confidence to say, this is who I am, out of fear of being too much of a braggart. I
mean, that's what we're kind of getting back to, is that pride is seen as a sin. It's seen as a thing you shouldn't have. You should be like, end of the day, you should just be like, oh, hunch your head over and be like, oh, just be humble. I mean, humility is seen as a great thing, but in the grand scheme of things, it also is. That's like, I don't know, great businessmen aren't humble.
No.
Like there's a certain kind of like, you have to have this. I mean, if you sit there quietly and twiddle your thumbs, the cute girl in your art class isn't going to come talk to you necessarily. She might, but she's also, if you are like, and you go up and you go, hi, hello, my name is blank, and you put your hand out, like maybe that'll work out. You actually, I mean, fortune favors the bold, but at the same time, if you're too bold, you're proud and you should be struck down because you are a motherfucker.
Right. And on the flip side, I was on a first date once with a really cool girl, and my defense mechanism kicked in, and the only thing I did, because I felt, like I didn't deserve to be there, I kept being funny, but the butt of every one of my jokes was me.
Oof.
And it was self-deprecating constantly.
Flagellation, yeah.
Over and over and over again. And she did this great thing where she put her hand on my shoulder and she goes, honey, you're great. You don't have to shit on yourself the whole time. And I was like, thank you. It felt like somebody came down and was like, you're free.
I had a similar thing happen where a friend of mine was always like, it always seems like you're in a hurry to be the first one to make a joke about yourself. But have you thought that maybe nobody's going to be doing that? And I was like, wow, no, I didn't know that. Thanks.
Now I do. Now I'll be the first to think that. Yeah, that's really interesting because I think that every single one of us have to walk that balance with every single thing we do. It was like the money conversation, right? Like the $5,000 raise. Certain people can know that because they're close, they're in the circle, and then others can't. And we pick and choose what to share with others.
Also, I mean, that's a great example, but money doesn't determine success.
No, at all.
I mean, I think that there's...
I know people who make money who are fucking miserable, and I know people who make no money who are really happy. And I know people in the middle who are just a wreck or great.
There's also I don't know, people who are, if you're proud of something, there's also people who don't get it, I don't know, we're all sort of just awful mammals hurtling through space on a rock. So I don't, there's no right answer here. But the important thing is, I think, to just try to weigh these options without burning yourself out in the process.
Right. The things I've been the most proud of in the last few years, outside of marriage and getting my shit together and becoming a father, is stuff I did at work, which is cool to share with the people who understand it. But when I call my dad up and I'm like, hey, I interviewed the Assassin Creed. He's like, I don't know what that means,
Yeah. No, so, I mean, it's the same thing is not understanding how to explain that. I had a cool thing happen, and this is, I mean, obviously this isn't fucking normal. Our jobs make no sense, but my fiance's family they're Vietnamese. They're her parents are entirely disconnected from mainstream American pop culture and comics and Marvel movies and all that shit. They're kind of like, what the fuck is going on over there? Give us a good old fashioned action movie, whatever.
Yeah, I want a Western.
Yeah, no, I mean shit like that. They're like, what about The Fugitive? That was a good movie.
Make another Maverick.
Yeah, but I interviewed Jackie Chan, and that was the first time I'm like, let's write home about it, Yeah. And she showed that to her entire family, and Jen's parents were like, "This is great. You did a good job. It's very cool. Good job." And I was like, holy shit, And I mean, I interviewed I don't know, and also that's the thing. If I tell that story to other people, if I talk about how I got to interview celebrities for my job, I sound like a piece of shit.
Oh yeah.
I sound like a fucking asshole.
Yeah. And actually I hate when that becomes the definition of what it is, because that's one part of it, right? And then you are defined by almost the apex of it. But that's really important that what you just said right there is you determined pretty much that pride is picking and choosing where and when you share what with, So basically it's taking...
I mean, I think that's really just everything in general. But I mean, pride is... Pride is kind of a stubborn, raging hard-on of a concept. You know, it's sort of all the blood went into the boner, and you're like, and it doesn't make nothing. Nobody's really thinking. It's just all kind of it's off in one direction, and you're not really you're not weighing your options there. You're not thinking straight.
I mean, jealousy is a sin, right?
I think so. I don't know.
It's something along those lines.
I think it's envy and jealousy, or there's a weird subtle nuance there, but...
And so, when I was at the gym the other day, and there was this guy that was just, proud as fuck to be ripped. And he should be, because that's hard. But also, I hated it because I hated how proud he was at doing something that I can't do myself. And then, so, is the problem him, or is it my envy?
I don't know. How ripped was he?
fucking ripped, man.
Like really like scared, like,
And just like soaking in sweat, and he's just heavy breathing. He looked like Ferdinand the Bull, just like built, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I'm probably better at like Mario Kart or whatever, but
You could probably smoke his ass, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean,
that's true.
I don't know. That's I do that too, where I'm like, oh yeah, well I'm tall. You know, like that's I always love that line from Speed. I was like, yeah, well I'm taller. And you're like, well, that's like a pretty stupid
Yeah.
metric. Like I don't know, I'm like a pretty tall guy, and then I'll meet someone who's taller than me, and I'm like, oh okay, But then I'm also like, darn, these legs, they're too long. I can't find pants that fit. Everyone looks better in pants than me. Like I don't.
yeah.
I mean, I think the huge takeaway with really, and this is funny for like a singular concept deep dive show, is that maybe trying to take everything wrong with humanity and breaking it down into a top 7 listicle isn't good.
It's hard because we're complicated, nuanced creatures,
Yeah.
but we also like, I don't know, like fucking animals do this. Like cats will bring dead birds to your house and be like, look. I killed it.
Look what I made you.
Look what I did.
I made you a dead thing.
It
was alive, and I transformed it by my own actions into death.
Yeah, birds will be like, I got this fucking banger I've been working on. Check out this song. You want to fuck me now?
They puff up their chest.
Yeah, they do all this shit. Like fish will start. There's that fucking lizard that shit comes out of
the frogs are like, what if my neck was gum?
Yeah.
They do like,
That's all. That is all pride. It is all there strategically to attract a mate, to procreate, to keep the species going. If it doesn't happen, like that's why they had to show those pandas porn. They were like too proud to get up and fuck each other. They're tired.
I don't think that was pride. I just think pandas are just there. I don't know what their fucking problem
ambivalence,
is.
maybe. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's like those are really important things to measure, and I think having a measured idea of how you sort of deliver all those concepts out to people is the ultimate way of finding balance.
I don't know.
But, but don't beat yourself up too much. That's important.
Do you ever get anybody shitting on your music?
Oh yeah, I've actually I've had, and it's the kind of thing where it's like very specific. I had somebody say that that my drum patterns were too rhythmic, which is a guy who wants, and like here's the music. No, hear me out. So music is obviously it's such a fucking vat. It's like saying cooking or it means nothing and everything. But some people approach drums from the perspective of they are loose, they are raw, and I try to incorporate some element of that, but I also quantize my drum patterns.
Yeah, I once got mad at a friend because he said that he said that Mozart was horseshit because he was too mathematical, and I was like, it's Mozart, you fucker. Like, let it go.
But in a way, like, I mean, if your friend really likes jazz, then yeah, Mozart is math as fuck.
I get that. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
So I mean, yeah, you get it happening for everything. I mean, that's the thing about the world we live in now. And this is not just me saying this. This is anyone who's ever made anything, who's ever put out anything. The average human being nowadays has to deal with the complaints and criticisms and repercussions of putting out anything in the wild, because it will be consumed by somebody you've never met, seen, or ever will see. Maybe somebody that doesn't even really necessarily like deserve a voice in responding to you will see something that you said and tell you why you're wrong or you're right or you love it. And the good and the bad of all that is that you can make something, put it out there, and strangers will see your art for the first time. But also people will tell you it's shit, and maybe they're right and maybe they're wrong, and you have to be able to sift through all that. But you need the confidence and the pride to put it out there to begin with, because the lack of that is what keeps shit in creative jail forever. It's what keeps me from putting out music. It's what pride is what stopped me from putting out more music for a very long time, because I was like, this has to be perfect. And there's that perfectionist pride, right? And perfectionist pride means that everything you do has to be perfect up to your standards. And so if you're cooking and you take one bite and it's gross, you throw it out, and everyone at the kitchen table is like, what the fuck, man? You said you were going to make dinner. Or you're an artist and you're working. I had this thing where my mom came in when I was like 10 years old. I think I told you this story. I was drawing and she was like, what are you working on? And I was like, you saw it before I finished it. And I crumbled it into a ball and threw it out.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the looking back on that, I was like, what the fuck caused that to happen? Because I was too proud of showing her this unfinished thing because it had to be perfect before anybody in the world could see it. And that means that your shit just stays in prison forever.
I used to draw a lot of like Dragon Ball Z fan art when I was in high school, and I remember my mom like would see it and she's like, "Oh, I like yours better," and I'd be like, "You're so stupid. What do you know what you're talking about?" And I mean, needless to say, I did not have sex in high school, but like, I don't know. It was like I was like, what would the right thing to say be? You know? And I, honestly, like, it's weird how like drawing all it's just trying to copy someone else's style and try to like just like fan art is like it was very very comforting. It was like a very familiar shit. It was kind of like it was almost like drawing toys. It was like it was like something playful about it. But as far as like actually trying to like make my own shit, it wasn't 100% creative, and fan art has its own place, but like, did my mom want that? I want my mom to be like, oh, yours is, I see that you're taking cues from Akira Toriyama's style, but, you're adding your own flourish, and, it looks as though you're getting the hang of those colored pencils, she was like, I like yours better. And I'm like, thanks, Mom. Yeah, like that was the wrong kind of thing, and I was like, I don't know where pride comes into that equation, but like,
yeah, well, she's proud of you, but
exactly,
she also doesn't know how to, she doesn't know she doesn't know enough about Dragon Ball, but also like it doesn't matter to her that thing is over there because to her, you're fucking awesome. Yeah, and that's really cool.
No, the thing I'm copying was made 20 years earlier by a Japanese dude she's never met, and the thing that I'm making is made by me, her son, who she's proud of, or probably, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny how there's never the expression "rest on your laurels," to be like, this is fine. I'll sit right here on my laurels, and I guess I theoretically, I don't know what the etymology of that is. Like if dudes who won the Olympics would just use their own little crowns as like cushions or
like
something, like they take a shit on their own. I don't know. But you kind of have to here and there. Yeah. You have to stop and be like, hey, I did this.
This is working.
The sun is down.
Yeah.
I did my work. I worked hard. I made the thing. I can always do better, but like, take a minute and just reflect on what you did and be happy about it.
Yeah, and if you're creative, like ship it. Just get it out there. Like finish that cake, finish that song, finish that piece of art, and let other people pick it apart and chew it up and spit it out.
No, I mean, if it fucking sucks, like people will maybe tell you, and you can go use that as ammo to change your shit and do it better next time. And
also when you deliver it, maybe go easy on the verbiage, like this is the fucking best thing ever made in the history of time. Mm-hmm. I saw this thing going around the other day. It was a really interesting sort of like subsection of Pride that was like,
I'm sorry, our other podcast, The Comedy Button, I believe the tagline is the best podcast made by human beings on planet Earth.
Yeah. I think we're fully aware that that's not the case. It's actually Serial season 1.
That's a good, and Shittown's pretty good too.
Yeah, it's really good. So I saw this thing going around the other day that was, so when you think Kanye West, right? You think pride, you think cockiness. It was all of his album covers next to all of Taylor Swift's album covers. And Kanye West has never put himself on one of his album covers. It's always just like weird art, or like bears.
I kind of love him for that, actually. Yeah. And not Taylor a lot of Swift, things I love Kanye West for, but that's one of them.
And Taylor Swift has only put Taylor Swift on Taylor Swift album covers. And like Kanye's at the point where he's like talking about himself kind of in the third person, like where he's up there and he's rich. Like he married the only person that was like had bigger SEO than he did. So they're just like that's multiple brands colliding right there. But Taylor Swift at the end of the day is like, this is me. It's a picture of my face. This is not about the music. This is about my face. The music is there too, but you see my face first. And Kanye's like, I'm the most cocky motherfucker in the world, but this is a font, and that's a bear. And that's really fucking weird. I think that's really fucking weird because it's like,
here's an NES sprite of me fucking my ex.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like what we perceive to be the most cocky person in the world, right? When people think pride, they think like rappers. They think people like him. They think Kanye West, Kim Kardashian, who's like, oh, she put her butt on Twitter and like it was blew up the internet. It broke the world. They're making a Wreck-It Ralph movie about it, sort of. Yeah. But ultimately, like, at the end of the day, when it comes to ship his product, he was like, I gotta hide. I don't want to be seen. Put the bear out there. Like, there's something really weird and endearing about that. That at the end of the day, I think he does have a complexity to it. And I think that there's sort of a fear of maybe coming, of like, really getting to the finish line and being like, that's me, that's my face crossing it. So I find that really fascinating, because I think that, like, you can be really proud of something and then no one ever knows really who you are. You know, there's so many people that worked on some of our favorite things that no one knows a thing about them. But they're really proud of their work, but they're not public about it. Like, how many people worked in the shadows on Star Wars, right? How many people worked on sound design and puppeteering and art direction and concept art? And you really, if you wrote down a list off the top of your head, those are our favorite films of all time. Like, if you wrote down a list off the top of your head, like, how many people do you know by name that worked on those movies? You'd be able to name maybe 10, 20, 30, not including actors and actresses, which means dozens of people who worked on those films, who continue to work on those films, were very proud of them, but not proud enough to be like, that's it, that's me, you know? Not saying that's what John Williams did.
I think a lot of people are taken aback by sort of association with things that they don't, maybe they worked on and they're just like, this is a job. Like, I was doing my thing, and they're like, I don't know. Like,
it's work, and I'm here to do my work. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we should wind things up, but I wanted to talk on one thing really quickly, which was, I think that pride is a thing that gets, some people are still like, that's a bad thing. You shouldn't be proud. In specifically in like the context of something like gay pride or
gay
like
pride, yeah,
we have. I mean, we're
the Pride Parade.
Yeah, we're in San Francisco, and obviously, like, there's a thing called Pride Week, which basically means that, Ubers will be more expensive, and you're probably going to see a dick.
Yeah,
because people are out there they're having a good time, and it's like, why is that? Why is it okay to be proud of that? And I think I figured out a good rule for figuring out whether or not it's okay to be proud of something. And this is I'm again making up rules for things.
This is not mathematical.
Very bad.
Yeah.
No. How many, if depending on how many bad words you can think of to describe a thing that's really not hurting anybody, that means that if there's a lot of them, if there's racial slurs, if there's homophobic slang slurs, it means they get a parade.
Right.
It's like, you can be proud of that, because that means that there's a fucking dictionary of hatred, like there's people pushing back. There's a resistance.
Yes.
And I think some people are like, well, we're getting, I don't want to get fucking preachy or circle jerky here. And
we're digging into the concepts. So, you're right.
Some people are like, why can't I have a straight pride parade? And it's like, they fucking have that. It's called weddings.
Yeah.
It's true. It's called history.
There is no systematic history of oppression and discrimination against straight people, and there has been against gay people. So out of sort of self-defense spawned a gay pride parade.
Yeah.
And you could look at that and be like, they stole our word. And it's like, well, they didn't. And I don't know which word you really wanted, because if it's parade, parades are kind of gay to begin with.
Yeah. How much does anybody want a parade? They're like graduations in the street with some parades are pretty fucking cool. They got like big floats and stuff.
No, they're not great. No parade is great.
What about the one with Garfield?
The Macy's Day Parade, where you're hungover and like an animal falls on a roof once a year, that's okay.
That's pretty good.
That's okay. Like, when Sonic deflates and like it lands on a cop car, that's a fun time. But mostly the like gay pride and the Pride Parade, and again, like, we're saying that from people that live in San Francisco, that stems from sort of systematic oppression and that a necessity to say, like, fuck that, we're great and we're proud of it, which brings us back to what we talked about at the top of the show, which is sort of like the opposite side of that is you have somebody who's like, I'm a proud gun owner, I'm a proud Republican, I'm a proud Christian. That comes from sort of a perceived, I would say, attack on the ideals of those people, right? Like, when someone says I'm a proud gun owner, I don't think it's just because they say like they love guns. It's because there's a lot of conversation about like coming after that person's guns or making it difficult to get guns.
No, I think there's something important about people banding together and I don't know, finding people with common interests, common causes, but at the same time, like, you got to stop and be like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Like, what's the? And I mean, there's people who are like, I don't know, you get like, I went to school with kids who are like awkward, closeted homosexual 15-year-olds, and who would be like, they would sneak away from their, stubborn conservative parents' houses and go to the city for Pride weekend, and it was like, going to Never Never Land. Like they would just be like, oh, it's okay. Like, I can be myself. Like, I'm not faking it. I'm not hiding,
I think that's such a fascinating take too, because it's sort of, we spent most of this conversation talking about sort of pride on an individual level. Mm-hmm. And there is pride in numbers and pride in groups, and I think that's important to hold on to too. And I don't think that, like, it's weird because with gay pride, I don't think people say like, oh, they're being cocky. I mean, they might mean that in a different way. Yes, there's that joke.
Yeah.
But no, no one's like, these people are bragging, they're being cocky, So
I mean, I'm sure there's some like Fox News grandma out there who's saying that. You know? But like, I don't know. I know that there is somewhere that mentality that like, what are they so proud of? And it's like, well, they're proud that they don't feel like they shouldn't exist,
Yeah, or that they need to hide.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this sort of like, and I imagine if the more that world becomes equal for all, the less there will be a sort of like a big celebration about it. And last but not least, there's Kitty Pride.
Kitty Pride's great. She can walk through walls. Mm-hmm. She dates Colossus.
Yeah.
I thought that Joss Whedon did a great job with her in the Astonishing X-Men run. He did a good job with this. First 4 volumes, Astonishing X-Men, real good. Kitty Pryde is a central character. Kitty Pryde was originally in what would have been the first animated X-Men series, which was Pride of the X-Men. She's going to be kind of the central character. But that tanked probably because they gave fucking Wolverine an Australian accent, which makes no sense. And so instead, they basically swapped out Kitty Pryde's character with Jubilee for Night of the Sentinels, which became the Saban Fox Kids X-Men animated series. But I like Kitty Pryde a lot in the comic books.
Wow, you know a lot about comics.
She also goes by Sprite and Shadowcat, probably some other names I forgot.
You're bragging.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I'm very proud of my Kitty Pryde knowledge.
Anyway, that is Weird Heat, and that was Pride. Tell us what you think about Pride. It's a tough one.
I don't know if I'm proud of this episode, honestly.
Really?
I think we did our best, but we're scratching at some deep rooted concepts, and it's tricky. And also, I had this kind of embarrassing, like women's liquor in the shot the whole time.
You're not proud of it? You're hiding it?
Oh, fine, I'll bring it out.
Okay. You
Maybe
can't
they'll
do an
sponsor
episode
us.
about Pride and hide something.
Yeah, like we're like, yeah. Anyway, so would you just fucking? It's like a fucking low carb malt liquor drink, you know?
Yeah, well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
That's Weird Heat. That was Pride. Tell us about Pride. Tell us how it impacts you, how it impacts your creative flow, how it stunts you, how it helps you get workout, or helps you determine who you want to be, what you want to share, and who you are in general.
You can email us weirdheat@gmail.com. We have a Facebook group. I know Facebook is not really something to be proud of right now, but head to facebook.com/group/weirdheat and go post something you're proud of. Mm-hmm. No judgment. It's all good. That's kind of what we're doing here, is we're trying to get people to talk about things. I mean, do you make art? Do you hide it from the world? What the fuck is wrong with you? Get it out there. Share it with the universe. Did you cook something hideous? Post a photo of that mess. Show us that wet casserole. I don't care.
You remember, some of the weirdest looking food tastes really good, so sometimes it doesn't photograph
I love
well.
a good slurry. Yeah, fucking turn the flash on and take a picture of chili. What could go wrong?
God.
If you want to support this show that we make, head to patreon.com/weirdheat. We also have a little community on there who suggest topics for the show and share their own creations. We are on Twitter, Weird Heat, Instagram, Weird Heat, Facebook, which is like Weird Heat Studio, I think. And we are both on Twitter. I'm Max Scoville. He's Agent Bizzle.
Yep.
Thank you for watching and or listening. And that's it. That's the end of the show.
I'm very proud of this episode.
I think we did okay.
I think this is probably.
I'm proud of this project.
Yeah, me too. But not the episode.
I don't know. I'm scared.
Okay, that's
people,
okay.
People are going to be like, you should be ashamed of this episode. I'm like, oh shit, I'm ashamed of this episode.
We have to do an episode on fear then.
Oh, that'll be a good one.
Yeah, we'll work that out.
Spooky Times,
Why do you
featuring the
think
ghosts.
Why do you think it'd be so good? Because you're cocky about it.
No, because I like talking about ghosts and things.
Oh, it's not going to be about ghosts.
I think in the middle of it, we'll just put up a skull and scare people. Fear!
Weird
anyway,
heat.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for watching.
Now look in the mirror and tell me what you see. Well, you want to know what I see? I see pride. I see power. I see a badass mother who don't take no crap of nobody. Look in the mirror and tell me what you see. Well, you want to know what I see? I see pride. I see power. I see a badass mother who don't take no crap of nobody.
See all that?
Yeah, man. But it's not about what I see. It's about what you see. Now look in this mirror and tell me again what you see.